She had always been fascinated by music. The way a melody could rise and fall, the way it could touch hearts without words felt magical to her. But in her small neighborhood, dreams like hers were often laughed at. Music, especially the piano, was seen as something unreachable, almost silly for someone like her to even attempt. Her house wasn't big, and the piano she had was old, a hand-me-down from a distant relative. Its keys were uneven, and some made a soft, sad sound when pressed. Still, to her, it was the most beautiful thing in the world. Every afternoon after finishing school and chores, she would sit in front of the piano. Her fingers would hover above the keys, hesitant at first, unsure how to start. She was not allowed music lessons by her parents, who worried it was a waste of time, so she taught herself, watching old videos secretly on a neighbor's phone and practicing every note she could remember. Sometimes her small hands hurt from pressing the keys too hard or from trying to stretch to reach notes that seemed impossible, but she never stopped. Her first encounter with ridicule was at school. One day she was humming a tune she had created herself, trying to remember it. A few classmates overheard her. They laughed and teased her, saying she sounded ridiculous. They made fun of her dream of learning piano, mocking her for wanting to do something they thought was useless. At first she tried to ignore them, but the words hurt more than she expected. She wondered if they were right. Maybe she was being foolish to dream of playing the piano in a world that didn't care about music like hers. Her heart sank every time someone laughed. Even at home, there were moments of small discouragement. Relatives who visited would often comment, not out of malice but from a place of misunderstanding. "Why waste time with that old piano?" they would say. "You should focus on studies or something practical." Their words, though gentle, felt like a heavy weight pressing down on her tiny shoulders. She started to feel that maybe playing piano was a mistake. Maybe she should give up before she became the laughingstock of everyone she knew. Despite all this, there was a spark inside her that refused to die. When she touched the keys, a warmth spread through her fingers and into her heart. The notes, even when clumsy, sounded like hope. She could create something that belonged entirely to her, something that no one could take away. Even when she played alone in her room, she felt alive in a way nothing else made her feel. The music became a place where she could hide from the cruel world, a safe space where she was free. She remembered one afternoon vividly. She had just returned from school, feeling low from another day of teasing. She sat at the piano and let her hands wander over the keys. At first there was no melody, only silence and hesitation, but slowly a tune emerged, soft and trembling at first, then growing stronger. As she played, the sadness of the day began to melt away, replaced by a quiet joy she hadn't felt before. It was like magic, how the piano could take her pain and turn it into something beautiful. However, the world outside her music room remained unkind. She would sometimes venture into the courtyard of her school during breaks, hoping to hum a little tune. But laughter would follow her wherever she went. The more she tried, the more the teasing seemed to grow. Some children even began leaving notes with mocking drawings, pretending the piano was a scary monster, or calling her hands funny for how they moved over the keys. She tried to laugh it off, but at night in the quiet of her room she would feel the sting. The question that haunted her was simple and relentless. Was it worth it? One evening, she almost decided it wasn't. She had spent hours practicing a new melody she had been working on, one she hoped would sound perfect. When she played it in front of the mirror, imagining someone applauding, her own voice of doubt whispered, telling her it didn't matter. Maybe the world was right. Maybe she should leave the piano alone. She looked at the old keys, their yellowed surface reflecting the dim light of the room, and for a moment she almost gave up. The fear of ridicule and failure was overwhelming. But then something inside her shifted. She remembered the feeling she had when she first pressed the keys and a sound came out. She remembered the warmth in her chest, the joy that no one could take from her. She realized that the teasing of others, the laughter, could not touch the music she felt inside. Even if no one ever applauded her, even if the world laughed, she had the piano and she had her own music. That thought gave her courage. She decided in that moment that she would keep playing. For herself, not for anyone else. From that day on, she practiced with a quiet determination that surprised even her. She explored every corner of the piano's capabilities, experimenting with rhythms and melodies that felt natural to her heart. She learned to play songs she heard in her mind, sometimes recording them on her phone to remember them, other times just keeping them in her memory. Slowly, Her confidence began to grow, not because others approved, but because she knew she could create something meaningful. She also began to watch videos of pianists on the internet, learning by imitation but always adding her own twist. She marveled at how hands could move so fast, how music could tell stories without words. She wanted to reach that level, not for fame or applause, but for the love of the art. She started noticing small improvements in herself. Her fingers moved more easily. Her sense of rhythm became sharper and she could play longer pieces without stopping. Her family noticed the change too. While they still did not fully understand her passion, they saw that it made her happier, calmer, and more focused. Sometimes her younger siblings would peek into the room, mesmerized by the music. Occasionally a neighbor would pass by and stop, quietly listening to the tune, nodding with appreciation. These small moments were like a secret reward, tiny sparks that reminded her she was not alone in her love for music. Yet, the ridicule had not disappeared completely. School remained a challenge, and she still felt eyes on her every time she hummed a tune or tapped a rhythm on her desk. But now she had a shield, the knowledge that what she created mattered to her. She no longer allowed the laughter of others to control her emotions entirely. She learned to smile through it, to shrug off the teasing, and to retreat to her music when it became too much. Even in her solitude, the piano became a companion, a friend who never judged her, who responded to her feelings instantly. It was patient when she made mistakes, forgiving when her fingers stumbled, and always ready to give her the joy of sound when she needed it most. She began to dream of a day when she could share her music, not because she sought approval, but because she wanted to connect, to touch the hearts of people the way music had touched hers. In the quiet hours of the night, she would play slowly, letting the notes linger in the room, imagining them filling spaces she could not reach otherwise. She discovered that music could express what words could not, could carry emotions she could not explain, and slowly she started to feel a quiet pride in herself. She was doing something brave, something beautiful, even if no one noticed yet. By the time a year had passed, her skills had grown remarkably. Her fingers danced over the keys with a grace that surprised even her, and the melodies she created were richer and more complex. Still, the fear of performing in front of others lingered. The memory of ridicule had not vanished, and she knew the world could still be harsh. But now she had a secret strength, a growing belief that she could face those fears one day, and so she continued. She played every day, learning, experimenting, dreaming. Each note was a small victory against doubt, each melody a quiet rebellion against the mocking voices. She was still the same girl, small and ordinary in the eyes of others, but inside she had begun to transform. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a symbol of resilience, of courage, and of the unwavering pursuit of her passion. Her journey had only begun, but even in the early stages, she felt the power of music and the power within herself. She realized that ridicule could not destroy her love for piano, that her heart could remain untouched by the world's scorn if she chose to nurture it. The music inside her was growing stronger, and soon she knew it would find a way to reach beyond her room, beyond the laughter and doubt, to the hearts of others. And in that belief, she found a quiet, unshakable hope that carried her through each day. As the days passed, her love for the piano grew stronger. Every morning she would wake up with a single thought in her mind: to play again. Even though the house was noisy with people going about their day, she would slip away to her room, sit at the piano, and let the music fill the small space. The world outside seemed far away when she played. She was no longer just a girl in a house being teased and doubted. She was a musician, a creator, someone who could bring sounds to life with her own hands. One afternoon, she discovered a new way to learn. She found an old notebook at the back of a shelf. It belonged to someone long gone and was full of music notes, some barely legible, others faint but still readable. She didn't understand all of it at first, but she tried to play what she could. Sometimes she would make mistakes, hitting the wrong keys, and the notes would sound off, but it didn't matter. Each attempt brought her closer to understanding the music written on the pages. She felt like she was connecting with the person who had written it, someone who had once also loved music deeply. Her confidence slowly began to grow. She noticed small improvements every day. Her fingers moved more easily across the keys, and she could play longer pieces without tiring. Some tunes she had learned now flowed naturally, almost as if the piano was guiding her hands. She started to enjoy challenging herself. trying pieces she thought were too difficult and celebrating each small success. With every song she learned, she felt stronger, more certain that her passion was not a mistake. One day, while she was practicing a new melody, there was a soft knock on her door. It was her neighbor, a kind elderly woman who had always been gentle toward her. The woman had been listening quietly to her practice for weeks and finally decided to speak. She told the girl how beautiful her music sounded, how it brought peace and happiness, and how rare it was to find someone who loved music so deeply. The words felt strange but wonderful, as if sunlight had suddenly broken through a cloudy sky. She had never received such genuine encouragement before. For the first time, someone outside her family had noticed her talent in a kind and loving way. Encouraged, she started spending more time exploring different melodies and creating her own. She experimented with rhythms and sounds, letting her imagination guide her. Some tunes were cheerful and light, others slow and somber, reflecting the mood she felt deep inside. Music became a mirror of her emotions, a way to understand herself and the world around her. She felt alive in a way nothing else had given her before. Even when she faced loneliness or remembered the teasing from school, the piano reminded her that she had a gift, and it was worth nurturing. As she grew more confident, she also began to share her music quietly. She would hum her new compositions while walking home from school, careful to avoid the teasing eyes and ears. Sometimes a classmate would hear a few notes and stop, listening curiously. While some still laughed or ignored her, there were moments when she noticed small sparks of admiration, brief glimmers that made her heart swell. She realized that not everyone would understand or appreciate her music, but some might, and that thought filled her with hope. Her skills began to attract attention in unexpected ways. A teacher at school, who had once been indifferent to her attempts at music, started to notice her dedication. The teacher invited her to play a short piece during a small school event. The girl was terrified at first, worried about the teasing and judgment, but she felt ready to face the challenge. For days, she practiced the chosen piece tirelessly, refining each note until it sounded just as she imagined. Her heart raced with both excitement and fear, but she knew this was a step she needed to take. When the day of the small school performance arrived, she felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The room was filled with students and teachers, some chatting quietly, others barely paying attention. She stepped up to the piano, her hands trembling slightly, and took a deep breath. As she pressed the first key, a wave of calm washed over her. The music flowed naturally, guided by her emotions and the countless hours she had spent practicing. She lost herself in the melody, letting it carry her away from fear and into confidence. The audience was quiet at first, unsure what to expect. Then, as the music continued, she noticed faces turning toward her, eyes widening in surprise. The sound of the piano filled the room, pure and expressive, and slowly, the room seemed to transform. The teasing, the ridicule, the doubts, they were all left outside. People began to smile, some nodding gently to the rhythm, others listening with quiet awe. By the time she finished, the room was silent for a moment, as if everyone was taking in what they had just experienced. Then a soft applause started, growing louder and louder until it became a wave of appreciation. She felt her heart swell with pride and relief. After the performance, a few students came up to her, not with teasing but with curiosity and admiration. They asked how she learned, where she had practiced, and encouraged her to play more often. The words felt like a balm to old wounds, healing the sting of years of mockery. She realized that while ridicule had shaped her early experiences, it could not define her. Her talent, her dedication, and her love for music were stronger than any laughter. Encouraged by this success, she began to explore her music further. She tried composing her own pieces, writing melodies that expressed her emotions and thoughts. She experimented with harmonies, learning how different notes could create different feelings. Sometimes she would stay up late, fingers moving quickly across the keys, completely absorbed in the world she was creating. She discovered that music was not just notes on a page, but a living thing that could reflect life, struggle, joy, and sorrow. She also began to dream bigger. The idea of performing in front of larger audiences no longer seemed impossible. She imagined sharing her music at community events, schools, or even local competitions. The thought made her nervous, but it also filled her with excitement. She realized that her journey with music was no longer just about escaping ridicule. It was about embracing her passion fully and sharing it with others. She felt a sense of purpose growing inside her, a determination to not just play, but to touch hearts with her music. Alongside her growing confidence, she experienced small failures too. Sometimes she would play a piece and realize it didn't sound as she had imagined. Other times she would stumble during practice, her fingers refusing to cooperate. But instead of letting these setbacks discourage her, she learned to treat them as lessons. Each mistake was a chance to understand the piano better, to refine her skills and to grow stronger. She began to see that progress was not a straight path but a journey of persistence and patience. Her relationship with music became deeply personal. She could express feelings through her piano that she could not explain in words. Joy, sadness, fear, hope, all were captured in her melodies. Music became her voice when silence seemed easier, her companion when loneliness threatened to overwhelm her, and her guide when doubt crept in. She found solace in the knowledge that no matter what the world said, the piano would always be there, ready to respond to her emotions with understanding and grace. Over time, she also began helping others in small ways. Sometimes she would teach younger children in the neighborhood a simple tune or a rhythm. She found joy in seeing them smile as they learned, and the experience reminded her of the importance of encouragement and kindness. She understood that support could change someone's life, just as it had changed hers when the elderly neighbor praised her music. She wanted to be that source of inspiration for others, even in small ways. By the end of this period, she had grown not just as a musician, but as a person. She had learned resilience, patience, and the importance of believing in oneself despite criticism. She understood that ridicule could never extinguish a genuine passion, and that the approval of others, while nice, was not necessary for fulfillment. Her world had expanded through music, giving her confidence, joy, and a sense of identity she had never felt before, and so she continued her journey. No longer just a girl ridiculed for touching the piano, but a young musician quietly building her skills, exploring her creativity, and dreaming of the day her music could reach beyond the walls of her room. Each day was a step forward, each melody a statement of courage, and each note a reminder that she had the power to transform her life through the music she loved. The future felt full of possibilities, and for the first time she believed she could reach them. The day came when she was asked to perform at a larger school event. At first, the idea filled her with excitement, but soon a heavy cloud of fear settled over her heart. She remembered the teasing, the laughter, and the doubts that had followed her for years. Standing on a stage in front of so many people seemed almost impossible. She could imagine the whispers, the pointing fingers, the familiar mockery waiting in the wings. Her hands shook at the thought, but deep inside she felt a determination she had never known before. She knew she could not let fear control her any longer. The preparation began weeks in advance. Every day after school, she would sit at the piano for hours refining her chosen piece. She paid attention to every detail, every note, every pause, making sure the music sounded exactly as she imagined it. Sometimes she would play and make mistakes, her fingers slipping or her mind wandering. When that happened, she would take a deep breath, restart, and continue, refusing to let frustration take over. Each mistake became a lesson, and each attempt brought her closer to perfection. She began to feel a quiet pride in her resilience. She also imagined the audience in her mind, picturing the faces and the reactions she hoped to see. At first, she was terrified of their judgment, but soon, she realized she needed to focus on herself and the music. The piano was her voice, her way of expressing feelings that words could not capture. As long as she stayed true to the music, she believed the audience would feel what she felt. This thought became her anchor, keeping her calm when anxiety threatened to take over. To prepare for the stage, she practiced not just the music, but her presence. She rehearsed standing tall, taking a deep breath before pressing the first key, and imagining the opening note flowing effortlessly. She knew that confidence would be visible even before a single note was played. Her family noticed the change in her demeanor. They saw a girl who was nervous but determined, a girl who had learned to face her fears with courage. Their quiet support meant more than any applause. It was a reminder that she was not alone. Despite her preparation, doubt still crept in. Some days she would feel too small, too unworthy, as if her music would never matter to anyone outside her room. She remembered the ridicule of her classmates, the sharp comments from relatives, and the quiet skepticism of others. She wondered if they were right. Maybe she would fail. Maybe the audience would laugh. Maybe she was not good enough. These thoughts made her hands tremble as she played, and some nights she almost gave up, convinced she could not face the crowd. But every time doubt threatened to win, she thought of the first time she had pressed a piano key and felt the magic. She remembered the joy that had filled her chest, the quiet sense of purpose that had grown stronger with every melody. That memory reminded her that music was not just for applause or recognition, it was for her heart, her spirit, and the expression of her soul. With that thought, she returned to the piano with renewed determination, practicing until her fingers ached and her mind was focused only on the music. She also reached out to the elderly neighbor, who had praised her music months before. The neighbor offered gentle advice, to play as if telling a story, to let emotions guide the fingers, and to remember that music could touch hearts in ways words never could. These words became a mantra for her, repeated silently in her mind before each practice. She felt supported, guided by someone who believed in her when the world often did not. That encouragement became a source of strength she carried with her every day. As the event approached, the nervousness grew. The thought of walking onto a stage filled with people who had never heard her play was daunting. She worried about mistakes, about the possibility of forgetting notes, about being judged. She imagined the whispers and the laughter, the very things that had made her question herself for so long. Yet alongside the fear, there was an excitement, a sense that something important was about to happen. She knew this was her chance to show not just others but herself what she was capable of. The night before the performance, she practiced one last time. Her fingers moved smoothly across the keys, and for the first time, she felt truly ready. She played the entire piece without stopping, letting the music flow naturally. When she finished, she sat back, her heart racing but also filled with a calm satisfaction. She knew she had done everything she could to prepare. The rest was out of her hands, and she decided to trust the music, to let it guide her on the stage. On the day of the performance, she dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that was simple but made her feel confident. She arrived at the venue early, feeling the weight of anticipation pressing down on her chest. The room was buzzing with students, teachers, and families. Some faces were familiar, others unknown. She could hear the whispers, feel the eyes on her as she walked past, and her stomach tightened with nerves. But she took a deep breath and reminded herself that this was her moment, her music, her chance to shine. When it was time to perform, she stepped onto the stage and faced the piano. The bright lights made the room feel larger, but she focused on the keys and the melody in her mind. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and let her fingers fall onto the keys. The first notes were delicate, trembling slightly as she poured her emotions into the sound. Slowly, confidence grew with every chord, and the trembling faded. She became lost in the music, unaware of the audience, unaware of fear. She was alone with the piano, and that was enough. As she played, she began to notice the audience reacting. Faces that had seemed distant and critical were now attentive, curious, even moved. Some leaned forward, listening closely. Others smiled softly, caught by the beauty of her music. She realized that the piano was not just expressing her feelings, it was reaching them, touching hearts that had been waiting without even knowing. The realization filled her with a quiet joy, a sense of connection she had never imagined. Halfway through her performance, she made a small mistake. A note slipped, and for a moment panic flickered in her mind. But she remembered her practice, the lessons from the elderly neighbor, and the countless hours she had spent perfecting her craft. She let the music carry on, transforming the mistake into part of the melody, and the music continued seamlessly. That small triumph reminded her of the resilience she had cultivated over the years, the courage that had brought her to this stage. By the end of the piece, the room was silent for a brief moment, the kind of silence that only comes when people are truly moved. Then slowly applause began to fill the space, growing louder and louder until it became a wave of sound that wrapped around her like a warm embrace. She felt a mixture of relief, pride, and exhilaration. For the first time, she had faced her fear, shared her music, and touched the hearts of others. The ridicule, the doubts, and the teasing were still memories, but now they were shadows behind her, powerless against the light of her achievement. Afterward, people came up to her offering kind words, congratulations, and praise. Students she had thought would mock her now asked how she had learned, expressed admiration, and encouraged her to continue playing. Teachers who had been skeptical nodded in approval, recognizing the talent and dedication she had shown. Even some relatives who had doubted her at the beginning expressed surprise and pride. It was a moment of validation, not just for her skills, but for her courage and determination. That day marked a turning point. She realized that fear and ridicule could not define her, that passion and perseverance could overcome doubt. She had faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable and had triumphed through her own effort and love for music. The experience strengthened her belief in herself and in the power of following one's dreams, no matter how others might react. In the weeks that followed, she continued to practice with renewed energy and confidence. She explored more complex pieces, composed her own melodies, and dreamed of performing again, perhaps at even larger venues. The memory of the performance and the audience's reaction became a source of motivation, reminding her of what was possible when courage met preparation. Each day at the piano felt purposeful, each note a testament to the journey she had taken. Through this experience, she learned that true success was not just about recognition, but about growth, resilience, and the courage to face one's fears. She understood that the path to achievement was filled with challenges, doubts, and obstacles, but each step forward was a victory in itself. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a symbol of her strength, her passion, and her unwavering determination to follow her dreams. And so she continued, no longer just a girl who had been ridiculed for touching the piano, but a young musician ready to face new challenges, to share her music with the world, and to inspire others with her story. She knew there would be more obstacles ahead, more moments of fear and doubt, but she also knew that she had the courage to overcome them. The journey was just beginning, and the music within her was ready to soar. The day of the big performance arrived, and she felt a mix of excitement and nerves she had never experienced before. The hall was larger than any place she had ever performed in, with rows of seats stretching far back filled with faces she did not know. Her heart pounded in her chest and she could feel her hands tremble slightly. Every step she took toward the stage felt heavy, but at the same time, she knew this was the moment she had been preparing for, the moment to show herself and the world what her music could do. As she stepped onto the stage, the bright lights made it hard to see the audience clearly. She felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her, the fear of failure and the memories of years of ridicule. But then she took a deep breath and remembered the countless hours she had spent practicing, the lessons she had learned, and the joy she felt whenever she played. That thought anchored her, giving her courage to face the crowd. She sat at the piano, feeling the familiar cool keys beneath her fingers, and let herself focus on the music she had been creating for so long. She pressed the first key and the sound echoed through the hall. It was soft at first, trembling slightly as if testing the space. But gradually the notes grew more confident, flowing smoothly from her fingers. She closed her eyes for a moment and let the music carry her. Each note a reflection of her feelings, each chord a story she wanted to tell. For a while she forgot the audience entirely, lost in the melody, lost in the connection she felt with the piano. The audience was quiet at first, unsure what to expect. Some leaned forward, curious about the music, while others watched with polite interest. But as the performance continued, she noticed changes in their expressions. Eyes widened, lips curled into soft smiles, and people began to lean in, captivated by the sound. Her music was reaching them, touching emotions she could feel from her place on the stage. She felt a thrill of connection she had never experienced before, a silent understanding passing between herself and the listeners. As she played, memories of the ridicule she had faced surfaced briefly. She remembered the teasing classmates, the doubting relatives, and the whispers of disbelief. For a moment, fear threatened to break through her focus, but she reminded herself that all of those voices were behind her now. She was here, on this stage, playing the music she loved, sharing her heart with others. No one could take that away. The memory of past mockery strengthened her determination, giving her even more reason to play with all her emotion and skill. Midway through the performance, she encountered a tricky passage that required precise timing and quick finger movements. Her heart raced and her fingers almost slipped. For a brief second, panic flickered, but she remembered her practice, the hours she had spent perfecting each section, and the encouragement of the elderly neighbor who had once told her to let the music tell the story. She allowed herself to take a deep breath, refocused, and continued. The tricky passage flowed smoothly, and she felt a surge of triumph. She realized that the challenges she faced were part of the journey, and overcoming them made the performance even more meaningful. As the final notes approached, she played with a sense of freedom and exhilaration she had never known. The music rose and fell, carrying emotion and energy across the room. She felt a connection with the audience, sensing their anticipation and appreciation. When she played the last chord, it hung in the air for a moment, and then silence followed. The pause was almost deafening, filled with the tension of all the emotions she had poured into her performance. Then slowly applause began, soft at first, hesitant, and then growing steadily until it became a wave of sound that filled the entire hall. She looked up at the audience, seeing faces that were no longer doubtful but filled with admiration. Some were clapping, others were smiling, and a few had tears in their eyes. The reaction was overwhelming, and she felt her chest swell with pride and relief. Every hour of practice, every moment of doubt, every tear shed over ridicule, it all led to this moment. She had faced her fear and shared her music, and the audience had received it with open hearts. The feeling was intoxicating and humbling at the same time. After the applause, people came forward to speak to her. Some students she had expected to mock her now praised her courage and talent. Teachers offered congratulations and encouragement, recognizing the skill and emotion she had demonstrated. Even relatives who had once doubted her abilities expressed pride and amazement. Each word she heard strengthened her confidence and reminded her that her journey was worth every struggle she had faced. She realized that recognition was not the goal, but it was a beautiful confirmation that passion and perseverance could overcome even the harshest doubts. In the days that followed, the performance continued to resonate with her. She received kind messages and invitations to play at other events, each one a testament to the impact of her music. She also noticed a change in herself. The fear of ridicule that had once been so powerful now felt distant. She had proven to herself that her talent, her dedication, and her love for music were stronger than any mockery. Her confidence had grown, not just in her musical abilities, but in her courage to face challenges and embrace opportunities. She continued to practice daily, exploring new compositions and refining her skills. Each note she played felt more meaningful, each melody a reflection of her journey and growth. She began to experiment with her own style, combining techniques she had learned from videos, books, and her own imagination. The piano became more than an instrument. It was a part of her identity, a way to express herself fully, and a bridge between her inner world and those around her. Through this experience, she also learned the importance of resilience. She understood that setbacks and ridicule were part of life, but they did not define her. Every challenge she had faced had prepared her for this moment, had built her strength, and had shaped her into someone who could face fear and uncertainty with courage. She realized that true growth came from facing obstacles head-on, embracing vulnerability, and continuing to pursue what she loved. Regardless of others' opinions, the performance also deepened her sense of purpose. She wanted to share her music not just for recognition, but to inspire others, to show that passion and determination could overcome fear and doubt. She began thinking about ways to help younger children discover music, to encourage them to pursue their dreams even in the face of criticism. She remembered the encouragement she had received from the elderly neighbor, and she wanted to pass on that gift to others. As weeks turned into months, she continued to perform, each time gaining more confidence and refining her skills. The fear that had once been overwhelming became a motivating force, pushing her to practice more, to challenge herself, and to grow. She learned to embrace both the excitement and the nervousness that came with performing, understanding that these feelings were part of the journey and a sign that she cared deeply about her music. Her journey was no longer just about playing the piano. It was about discovering who she was, what she valued, and what she could achieve through persistence and courage. She realized that the ridicule she had faced was a chapter in her story, not the conclusion. She had transformed doubt into determination, mockery into motivation, and fear into confidence. The piano was her companion, her teacher, and her voice, and through it, she had discovered a strength she had never known. And so she continued her path with renewed purpose and joy. She played every day, each note a testament to her journey, each melody a reflection of her growth and resilience. She understood that the future would bring new challenges and obstacles, but she also knew that she had the courage to face them. Her music was no longer just a personal passion. It was a story of triumph, a symbol of hope, and a source of inspiration for anyone who had ever been ridiculed for following their dreams. In that music she found freedom, confidence, and the power to touch hearts, including her own. After the performance, her life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The applause and admiration she had received were not just moments of recognition. They became a foundation for her growing confidence. People who had once doubted her or ridiculed her for touching the piano began to see her in a new light. They approached her with curiosity and respect, asking her questions about her practice, her favorite pieces, and her inspiration. She noticed the change with a quiet sense of satisfaction. But it was more than just recognition that mattered. It was the proof that perseverance could overcome even the harshest doubt. Her family, who had once been hesitant about her piano practice, began to support her more openly. They helped her find quiet spaces for practice, encouraged her to perform at small gatherings, and celebrated her achievements. Their support, combined with her own determination, created a nurturing environment where her talent could grow. She felt a new sense of security, knowing that she was no longer alone in her pursuit of music. Her confidence blossomed, and with it came the freedom to explore her creativity more fully. She began to receive invitations to perform at other local events. Each performance brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to grow. She learned to manage her nerves, to connect with different audiences, and to express a wide range of emotions through her music. Each time she played, she discovered something new about herself and the piano. She realized that music was not just a skill to be mastered, but a language through which she could communicate feelings, tell stories, and inspire others. With each performance, her reputation grew. People began to recognize her talent and dedication, and she became a source of inspiration for others who had faced doubt or ridicule. Young children who had been hesitant to follow their own passions approached her for advice and encouragement. She shared her story, explaining that failure and criticism were part of the journey, but that determination and love for what you do could overcome almost anything. She found joy in helping others discover the same courage she had learned to embrace. Despite the recognition and opportunities, she remained grounded. She continued to practice daily, honing her skills and exploring new compositions. She experimented with different styles, combining classical techniques with her own creative ideas. Music became not just a passion, but a form of self-expression and personal growth. Each note she played reflected her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. The piano had become an extension of herself, a way to navigate the world and share her heart with others. She also began to think about the long-term impact of her music. She dreamed of performing on larger stages, collaborating with other musicians, and perhaps even teaching music to those who had no access to lessons or instruments. She wanted to show that talent and passion could flourish even in difficult circumstances, and that ridicule or doubt should never prevent anyone from pursuing their dreams. Her experiences had given her a unique perspective, one she was eager to share with the world. Over time, she noticed a shift in her own mindset. The fear and self-doubt that had once held her back were replaced with resilience and confidence. She had learned to embrace challenges, to view mistakes as opportunities for growth, and to trust in her own abilities. The ridicule that had once seemed insurmountable was now just a memory, a reminder of how far she had come. She understood that success was not about avoiding failure, but about persisting through it, and that lesson became central to her life. Her relationships with others also evolved. Friends and classmates who had once mocked her now admired her dedication and talent. Some sought her guidance, while others simply offered encouragement and support. She discovered the power of positive influence, realizing that her journey could inspire change in the lives of others. She became a quiet leader, showing that determination, passion, and resilience could transform challenges into achievements. As she continued to perform and grow, she also reflected on the personal transformation she had undergone. She was no longer the shy, hesitant girl who had feared ridicule and avoided the spotlight. She had become someone who faced her fears head-on, who nurtured her passion despite obstacles, and who found strength in her own abilities. The piano had not just taught her music, it had taught her courage, patience, and the importance of believing in oneself. Her music began to reach beyond her immediate community. People from different schools, neighborhoods, and even cities started attending her performances. She received letters and messages expressing how her music had touched lives, lifted spirits, and inspired others to pursue their own passions. Each message reinforced her belief in the transformative power of music and the importance of sharing one's talents with the world. She realized that her journey was no longer just about personal achievement. It was about creating a ripple effect, encouraging others to believe in themselves and follow their dreams. With this growing recognition came new responsibilities. She learned to manage her time, balancing school, practice, performances, and her own rest and well-being. She became more disciplined, understanding that talent alone was not enough. Hard work, consistency, and dedication were essential. She also remained humble, remembering the years of ridicule and doubt that had shaped her early experiences. Those memories reminded her to remain compassionate, to encourage others, and to never forget where she had come from. She also began to mentor younger students who were interested in music. She shared not just technical skills, but also the lessons she had learned about perseverance, courage, and self-belief. She encouraged them to embrace mistakes as part of learning, to find joy in their practice, and to believe in their own potential. Through this mentorship, she discovered a new dimension of fulfillment, realizing that helping others grow was as rewarding as achieving her own goals. Her dedication to music also inspired her to explore other creative avenues. She started experimenting with composing her own pieces, blending different styles and sounds to create music that was uniquely hers. She recorded some of her compositions, sharing them with friends, family, and her growing audience. Each new piece reflected her evolving understanding of music, her emotions, and her experiences. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that she could create something meaningful from her own imagination and effort. As time went on, she continued to face challenges, but she met them with confidence and resilience. Performance anxiety, demanding schedules, and complex pieces became opportunities to demonstrate her growth and determination. She approached each challenge with the lessons she had learned: practice diligently, believe in oneself, and embrace the journey, not just the outcome. This mindset allowed her to continue evolving as a musician and as a person, turning obstacles into stepping stones toward her dreams. She also realized the broader impact of her journey. Her story of overcoming ridicule and pursuing her passion became an inspiration for others facing similar challenges. She shared her experiences in conversations, small talks, and local events, emphasizing the importance of perseverance, courage, and dedication. She encouraged others to follow their dreams, even when faced with doubt, criticism, or adversity. Her message resonated with many, creating a network of support, encouragement, and shared inspiration. In the end, she understood that her journey was about more than just music. It was about transformation, resilience, and the courage to pursue what one loves despite obstacles. The ridicule that had once seemed crushing became a distant memory, replaced by pride, confidence, and a sense of purpose. She had learned to trust herself, to embrace challenges, and to find joy in creating something meaningful. Her piano had been the instrument, but her heart and determination had been the true drivers of her success. She continued to play, practice, compose, and perform, always striving to improve, always seeking new ways to express herself. Her music touched hearts, inspired others, and reflected the journey of a young girl who had faced ridicule and doubt, but never gave up. Through perseverance, passion, and courage, she had transformed her life, and her music had transformed the lives of those who listened. She had become a symbol of resilience, creativity, and the power of following one's dreams. And so she moved forward with confidence, joy, and a sense of purpose. Each note she played was a testament to her journey, each melody a celebration of her triumphs and growth. She knew that challenges would continue to come, but she also knew that she had the strength, skill, and determination to meet them. The girl who was once ridiculed for touching the piano had become a musician, a storyteller, and an inspiration. Her music would continue to resonate, and her story would continue to inspire, showing that passion, courage, and perseverance could overcome even the harshest obstacles.